You are now listening to The Strange and the Weird with your host, Stephanos Saganakis. Tonight, my guest host is going to be my friend Cassidy Cameron. We are going to be talking about the human brain and the mind and sentience. Weird fact of the day. There's actually a psychological disease that influences, specifically men, to become big and bulk. Now, welcome to the darkness. Hey guys, thank you for joining me, Stephanos Saganakis, with my co-host, guest host today, Cassidy Cameron. Cassidy, say hi.
Hi.
All right, let me just double check to make sure this is in fact archiving. Yes, this is archiving. Good. All right, guys. So as you heard me say a second ago, we will be talking about the mind today. Hold on, I think the volume's a little down. Give me 1 second. There we go. Yep, that's better. All right, guys. So if you want, you can come a little closer to the microphone because sometimes they have a little hard time picking up until it's the people in the background. All right. We have the musicians in the background again today, the same guys from last week. Once again, I'm going to apologize if you guys have any of that overbeared and you can't hear us, but it should be no problem. That's about it, really. Cassie, you want to say anything and say hi or whatnot?
I'm not sure what to say.
Yeah, just say hi.
Hi.
Anyways, it's your first time on the radio. I guess you're excited and nervous at the same time.
Definitely.
All right, so that's natural, I guess. Well, yeah, it's natural. If you guys want to call in anytime during the show, I'm going to give you the phone number now because I keep forgetting to do this in the beginning. The number is going to be 386-822-8770. If you want to call in anytime, talk about the mind, sentience, whatnot. So the first thing we're going to start talking about is the mind. And I wanted to just sort of go over a brief overview of what the mind is. Obviously, besides the brain and besides the fact that it's just a normal brain, I think when we think about a mind or we think about a brain, we're obviously just thinking intelligence. When it actually goes so much further goes so much deeper than what it actually is. When you think about it, everything you think is scary was created by you. You know what I'm saying?
Can you explain that more?
All right, let's break down the horror movies, right?
Yeah.
One of my friends, when we go to a horror movie, let's say we go to see Paranormal Activity, she's gonna be laughing the entire way through, and I've seen her laugh the entire way through haunted movies. She's laughing, and then a lot of other people are just they're scared. They're pooping their pants. They can't handle the horror, but her mind could handle it, which is really interesting because movies like that I think are scary too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in a way, we create our own fears, and I think that's the most impressive thing about the brain, that we create so much about ourselves in a subconscious yet sentient way. You know what I'm saying?
I think so. So would you say that the mind is comparable to the soul? Are they the same thing, or?
Well, that's actually a really good question. I wasn't thinking about the soul at the point. I definitely see they have a lot to do with each other. With the theory of the soul that you have an ethereal body or an ethereal consciousness, I think that would carry on into your mind and your habits and whatnot, and maybe into some of your fears. Let's say, for example, as a soul, you'd witness something horrible. Let's say Salem witch trials or whatever. You were hung in the ancient days. Maybe now you have a really big fear of anything going towards your neck. You know what I'm saying? There are some things that your mind chooses for you and you don't even know it. For example, I have a random fear of things going near my eyes.
Oh yeah.
Hence the glasses. So nothing will ever touch my eyes. And I don't even like seeing other people touch their eyes. So you have to think about yourself. Why am I so scared of them? I had no traumatic experiences. I had only eye doctor appointments. Those aren't so bad, you know. They just go poof and you're done. But why is it why does your mind choose to do choose what it chooses to be fearful of? You know what I'm saying? For example, if someone could be scared of heights and someone won't be scared of heights, you know what I'm saying?
I'm terrified of heights.
Heights are not the best. I mean, bring up into play and I'm fine. Other than that, no, not good. But the mind is so strong in that way that it chooses your fear, and you literally choose your own fears in a way. I guess it's sort of like choosing your own poison, if you know what I mean.
In that sense, do you think that any fears are biological or that they're all made up? Like, I've heard that, I've read somewhere that babies are afraid of falling, and that's the first fear, the only fear you're born with. Do you think that's true?
I've actually never heard about that. I think that the mind definitely has a lot of complexities to it, and with the mind being in the way it is, DNA transfer and whatnot, when it forms, I think that it has a sentience to it to know that if you fall, you're dead. Especially when you're at that young age.
Yeah.
How do you wake up from dreams a lot of times? You feel like you're falling. You know what I'm saying? I happens to me all the time.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, when you're in dreams, whenever I feel like I'm about to fall in a dream, I usually wake up like that, you know?
Yeah, same here.
So I think that that's a very interesting. I don't know if it's by genetics, to tell you the truth. That is interesting. That's a very interesting theory that fears can be brought. I know that a lot of fears are actually taught. I'm not going to be getting into politics here. No. But there's a lot of fears that are taught through different things through the parents. Some people make their children scared of, putting it frankly, sex. Some people will make their children scared of wild animals. And they can also be taught by institutions. For example, a school can make you scared of, well, once again, STDs, stuff like that. Or a church can make you scared of, I don't know, atheists or something, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of fears are more learned, but I never knew that thing about the babies falling. That's very, very interesting. And that's so interesting. I never knew that the babies had a fear of falling. That's the first fear you get. That's interesting. That's a really good thought, actually. If it was down by genetics, what else would we have? Like, if our fear was determined by genetics, then why hasn't it evolved? That's what I'm thinking right now. Everything in the human body evolves, you know that. Yes. And I don't think, if fears were genetics, I think that would evolve with everything else, right? But we still have the same primal fears from back in the day, even though a lot of them are illogical. For example, the dark. I'm so scared of the dark. I'm not going to deny it. The dark is very freaky.
Well, I guess you could look at it like, if when it's dark, you're not able to see it as easily, and it's dangerous. Like, you could fall, or there could be an animal out to hurt you. Like, so maybe it has evolved.
Maybe it's even. But what I'm saying is, like, now we're here in big cities with lights. I mean, we're in a very lit room, which shouldn't be as lit as it is right now. I don't want it this light. The dark's more fun. But we're in a lit room, and we're usually in the light almost 24/7 because of technology. Why is it that we're still so scared of the dark? Or why is it that now that we have animals basically caged up and we have guns and defenses, why are we so scared of the animals, which pretty much can't do anything to us, when in comparison we could do so much to each other? You know, I'm wondering why, if it's so biological, fear has not evolved into fear of ourselves, if that's a weird way of putting it. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It's a hard concept to understand. Definitely.
It's definitely a hard concept. I just got a message in from one of my friends. She thinks that parents are making their kids more scared of religion and God. Oh, that's interesting. Doing something wrong and then going to hell. Oh, Yeah, I could definitely see how that would make you scared of God.
I mean, I think that's always been a issue for sure. Like when you read the Bible, like even thousands of years ago, the consequence for doing.
If you want, you could answer that.
No, I'm sorry. I should turn my phone off. Anyways, there's always been a consequence, like sin, going to hell.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in modern times, it's becoming less of a fear. Like less parents promote
The healthier.
Yeah. I mean, do you agree, or do you think it's more prevalent?
In my personal life, I felt that there's a lot more people who actually, don't get me wrong, I know a good deal of atheists, personally. I know a good deal of agnostics. But when we're talking about the generations before our generation, which is basically anything about the 22, 23, I think that they definitely, have a different view on it, and they scare their kids more into it. And then kids this generation realizing, hey, we don't need to actually be scared by this. Because a lot of kids have new ideas. For example, some kids like me are thinking there's a all roads lead to heaven path, and that it's not just you break a rule, you're going to hell type thing. And there's some kids who still go by the more traditional view of, oh, if I did this, I am absolutely going to hell, which I think is a bit harsh. I think that's a really good bit harsh. But that's a lot of the behavioral factors that go into making this fear into your mind. And I think that has a really, really big impact on how fears develop in your mind. So we can even say that you don't even develop your own fears, or at least not all of them, but someone develops them for you, or they're sort of forced or learned, or they're sort of forced on you, or you learn to fear them.
Do you think that when you become aware that your fears are almost produced by someone else, that you're able to change them?
I highly doubt that, because to some degree, yeah. And some degree, like, I'll give you an example. Anyone who's watched Doctor Who is now scared of stone angels. They are terrified of stone angels. I'm not going to deny that. When I look at a stone angel, one of the first things I think of is don't blink.
I haven't gotten to that episode yet, but
All
I'm
right.
excited to know what all the hub is about.
Yeah, it's a very scary creature. And I know a few people who are listening are probably like, yes, this is terrifying. And there's also an episode of Doctor Who, for example, that is all about the dark and how much the dark will terrify you. You know what I'm saying? And that's also a very terrifying episode, obviously. And I don't think if you are taught something, you could automatically forget it like a snap. I think that no matter what, your mind has the ability to rehabilitate itself from almost anything. Not quite everything. There's some things that we cannot change with our because they're in our genes. And that would be a lot of disorders that are unfortunately out there. But I think if it's a learnt behavior, we could rehabilitate ourselves to either forget said fear or to change said fear of something. And some of them are just illogical, and they just happen.
I mean, I've heard of hypnotherapy being used to completely erase fears. Do you think that really works, or is it made up?
Hypnotherapy. I believe in hypnotism because it's all about the mind.
Yeah.
At that point, it's all about the mind. It's accessing your subconscious, which we're going to talk about to a greater deal later with tulpas.
Mm-hmm.
But hypnotherapy is all about having... hold on one second. It's all about having... I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. It's all about having your subconscious sort of tuned into someone else, and someone else sort of diving into your subconscious, saying, "Hey, forget about this. Take this." Inception, or deception. In the beginning of the movie of Inception, you saw that they went in there and they took out the information from the vault. Remember?
Yeah.
Something sort of like that. I think that's more what hypnotherapy would be like, sort of taking out the fear and to a smaller degree implanting the fact that you shouldn't be scared of this. It's no big deal. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, I mean, if you were a Stetson student, and if you are a Stetson student, and you're awesome, then you know that every year we have a hypnotist show, and every year, the hypnotist makes every man on stage give birth. He will hypnotize them, and he will say, "All right, now you guys are now pregnant and are going to give birth," and they start freaking out when they're giving birth. They're basically on the verge of tears. It's hilarious. And then he says stop, and they all just stop. They just stop mid-push. And they stop mid-breath. And they're like, okay, that's awkward. That's an awkward thing to see 7 men lined up, legs spread out, giving birth, obviously, to a non-existent baby. There's a whole bunch of different things like that that could be used as a therapy, like hypnotherapy, and hypnotism it works. If you don't believe it works, it won't work though.
I talked to the man who was the hypnotist in that show afterwards when he was done, and he said the only reason it works is because they believe it. Like, he said there's no magic, which is interesting. But
it is. I got a message in from our contest winner, Paul. He says, "I've heard that you have to meet certain psychological profile traits in order to be properly hypnotized. I'm not sure if it works on everybody," and I agree completely. There are probably different types of possibly disorders that might make it dangerous for you to be hypnotized. But at the same time, I also think that if you're willing to be hypnotized and you're doing it consciously, and you say, "Hey, you know what? This is going to work," it's going to work. It's a whole thing. If you put your energy behind it, it's going to work. But likewise, if you say, "Oh, I'm too smart for this hypnotism. I could easily beat it and show how manly or how strong I am," then yeah, you're going to beat it. It's your mind. Your mind could stop yourself from being hypnotized, or you could be hypnotized and it's going to be pretty cool, you know? A lot of those people summoned ligers in their hypnotism, or monkeys, and they were petting monkeys, and they felt them and they saw them and they were able to interact with them. One guy got bit. A lot of things happens, and hypnotism works only if you want it to work. If you don't want it to work, it will not work.
are you aware of what you're doing?
I've never been hypnotized. I've been wanting to go on the show for the past 2 years, and not once was I ever chosen. This year, I was so close. There was a guy next to me, or a guy like 3 seats away from me that was chosen, and I wasn't chosen. I was really sad at that point. But from what I know, they remember it once they leave the room, because the hypnotist goes, "All right, you got to not remember anything until you leave this room, and whenever anyone shakes your hand, you're going to start doing the cowboy dance." So you shake their hand, they do the cowboy dance, they forget about that, and they leave the room, and they remember everything that happened. Absolutely everything. And they'll be like, "Dude, did you see that giant tiger on the stage?" He's like, "No, there was no tiger." And they'll be like, "Oh, I was hypnotized." You know, they'll be like, they'll remember it because of how strong the hypnotism was. And that's the power of the mind. The mind will bring up everything in front of you, and you could feel it, you could touch it, you could basically do anything if you put your mind to it. That has any type of mental effect. It's really cool. I think that hypnotism works like that, and that your mind adapts so well to bring something into physical form when it does not exist. You know?
Yeah. Is the mind the same thing as the brain, or is it a separate? Is the brain just biological and the mind is something separate and not of the body? I
would think that, yeah. I mean, personally, I do think that. I think the brain is a big, massive fat. That's what it is, guys. It's gray matter and fat. And that fat sends electric signals and whatnot. Because a lot of things have a brain, but some of them don't per se have a mind. I believe that to a degree, everything has sentience to a degree. But especially animals. I mean, come on. How could animals not have sentience? But
can you explain what sentience is?
I can't.
No.
I know. But the mind the mind is sort of like, let's say the brain is like a balloon. And so the brain is the actual balloon part itself. Without the mind, the brain is not filled. But once you pop the brain, there is no mind. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
They're codependent on each other. Because you can have a brain and have no mind. And basically you're a zombie. But if you damage the brain, then you have a damaged mind. Or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
So when people are... have you heard of brain dead? Where you
Yes.
get so hurt that your brain stops functioning? Do they still have a mind, or has it left and went somewhere else?
That goes into the whole theory of the soul at that point, I think. I know people who've been heart dead. I've never met someone who's been brain dead. That goes into all belief right there. That's up to you to believe personally, I think. If you think that your mind will stay for a short while till your body dies, maybe that's what it is, because you have your soul there and you have that ability to stay there while your body's dead, and then you just sort of slip back in when your body's alive. Or maybe it's just sort of like a temporary shutdown, like when you hibernate your computer. You know, and then once it turns back on, it's right back. You know? I don't know. That's a very good question. If anyone wants to share their opinion on the mind and the brain, please call in 386-822-8770. We would love to hear from you guys, hear your opinion about the mind and the brain, and if you want to include the soul. But there was a story just one more time, the number 386-822-8770. I speak too fast sometimes. There's a story about this guy in late 1800s, I think. He was in a railroad. No. This is colonial times. My bad. No, after colonial, before 1900s, somewhere between 1700 and 1800. And this guy was doing his work, and he got injured when a spike went through his jaw and through the frontal lobe of his brain. So they had to do sort of like an open brain surgery at the point, which is extremely dangerous, especially in that time. He did survive, though. But he started acting differently. And because of how he was acting differently, it sort of led to the point where you didn't recognize him as a person anymore. He was a completely separate person with the memories of someone else. You know what I'm saying? So this ties in with the brain, is saying the brain has, if the brain is damaged, like a part of the computer is damaged, then that part of the computer or that part of the brain will not work to full functionality or will change. Like if you get a virus, you get bacteria in your brain.
Yeah.
Which be careful about that E. coli going around, guys. That stuff's serious, and there's a lot of unreported cases, especially in Florida and other parts of the world, with that brain-eating E. coli. Gotta be careful about that, guys. But yeah, once the brain's damaged, I think part of the mind is damaged as well, and it could happen. And it can happen sort of vice versa too. If your mind is damaged, in a way, sort of, then your brain has to sort of be damaged. You know what I'm saying? Or changed or altered.
So,
That's about it, I think. I actually have a list of since we just got off on the brain. I want to sort of take a list and show you guys some of these. Actually, some of them. They sound fake. This is from Smosh.com. So this is actually a comedy website. So if you guys are very sensitive to psychological disorders, relax. I'm reading it off a comedy website. These are the 5 fakest sounding psychological disorders that actually exist in real life. And I already mentioned one of them. Bigorexia. What do you think that is?
bigorexia.
Bigorexia.
Sounds almost dirty.
Yes, it does. It does sound very dirty. Oh, Lord, it sounds very dirty. But no, bigorexia is basically the word big and anorexia put together. It's some guy... it's actually the nickname for a disorder where people, primarily male, try to work out constantly so they can become huge, i.e. the opposite of anorexia. Most of these guys also suffer from depression and a form of OCD. And next time you think that this a muscle-bound freak, when you see someone scary at the gym, realize he might actually have some serious stuff going on. That's what it says off the Smosh website directly. And I think that's a pretty weird one because you have depression, OCD, and bigorexia. This one is dirty. Genital retraction syndrome. What do you think of that is, Cassidy?
I have no idea. Is it like... I don't even want to say. Like, I just didn't hear.
This affects both men and women. And, hold on, let me get this. It's defined as sudden and intense anxiety that the penis, or with females, vulva and nipples, will recede into the body and possibly cause death. In other words, you're so worried that the size of your junk that you think will become small enough to literally kill you.
That's interesting.
I have never ever heard of this. That one's a brand new one.
I wonder how common it is. Like, it has to be pretty rare, or maybe we just don't.
I think it's a man-made thing.
Man-made thing?
It's a man-made thing. I think it's one of those behavioral disorders. I think because to a degree you have all these people. That are like. And men, just don't lie about your size. Just be honest. You have all these people saying, "Oh yeah, this guy's this big, this guy's that big, whatever," and then the person gets so inconfident with themselves, it's sort of ingrained into their brain. And I think that's how this would take effect. So it's basically the worrying of the genitalia becoming so small that it kills you, and I think that's a man-made thing. It might be partially due to the genetics, but I really don't think it is because there are people who are.
I guess it could be like a lack of sexual education. Like,
yeah, I could agree.
If you're taught, like, that doesn't happen. I'm pretty sure it doesn't happen.
I think it's a result of human intervention with the human mind, saying, "Oh no, this is wrong. This you have to be like this to be well endowed or something." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right, the jumping Frenchman of Maine. Do you want to take a guess at this or no?
Jumping Frenchman of Maine?
Yes, that's.
Is it you're afraid of French people?
Let me see.
Who jump?
It's a Tourette's-like condition. So far, only found in a group of people of French ancestry living in northern Maine. Basically, you sort of jump out of your chair screaming a bit. It's sort of like random impulses from your body making you jump.
So it's not a fear; it's an action. Like,
it's an action.
It makes you. Is it like Tourette's?
Yeah, it's a Tourette's-like condition. So they sort of just like freeze up for a second, and then they freak out, and then they're back to normal.
Oh.
But it's only the French people in Maine.
I guess that could be evidence for genetics, maybe.
Maybe. That could be very good evidence for genetics, actually. That's a very interesting thing. The Alice in Wonderland syndrome. Okay, then.
Alice in Wonderland. Is that like... I'm guessing maybe you think your whole life is made up?
Yes. It says, it's a scary, surprisingly common condition that makes the entire world look like a funhouse mirror. Small things are big things are tiny, and proportions are all over the place. It's only temporary, and the usual indication is actually... Oh, this is interesting. This actually comes before you get mono. Apparently, it's a useful indication that you're about to come down with mono. You should probably head to the doctor before your throat closes. That's interesting. This is a temporary psychological disorder that happens because of mono, a virus. Is it yeah, it's a virus.
I'm not sure.
I did not know that. I'm sort of surprised about that. And then we have the fifth one and final, exploding head syndrome.
Exploding head syndrome.
Take a guess.
Maybe you think you'll study so hard your head will explode. Nope.
Exploding head syndrome is a legitimate condition who suffers frequently hallucinate extremely loud bang sounds in their head while trying to fall asleep. There's no cure treatment. Basically, they just think that there's like gunshots going off in their head.
That would be terrible.
I know. That's horrible.
I can hardly get to sleep as it is. I can't imagine like hearing gunshots in my head.
Boosh. And you can't go to sleep for the next 3 days.
3 days?
No,
Oh.
it's like
Oh.
it's a saying. It's a saying. One of my friends just sent in. If you're a Whovian, you're gonna love this. That's the master. Because the master always has a beat of 4 in his mind, 24/7. So basically, that was a really funny comment I just had to say. All right, guys, we'll be going on a music break right now. Once again, if you want to call in, the call-in number is 386-822-8770. You're going to be listening to a cult favorite of a song. Hope you guys enjoy. Oh, my mic was off. If you did not know what that song was, then I don't know who you are. That was Time Warp from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Great, hilarious movie. In a way, I guess. How do you describe the Rocky Horror Picture Show? I don't know. You haven't seen it, have you?
No, I haven't. I've always wanted to, but
It's something you have to see. I know my mom, when it first came out, she wasn't allowed to see it because it's basically about transsexual transvestites. Basically, and it's hilarious. It's awesome.
I've heard
play.
so many different opinions. Some people have told me it's disturbing. Some say it's really funny and awesome. Like,
Once again, it's a big mind thing. Depending on the person's view, if they have a really strict view on, let's say, clothes, and you have to wear a skirt to your knees, they're not gonna like that movie at all.
oh yeah.
Oh no, they're gonna hate it, absolutely hate it. But if you have a very open view and you're just like, hey, I'm gonna try it out for fun, you're gonna love that movie. You're gonna absolutely love that movie. Some things about it are just like, why did that happen? But other things are just like, this is the best thing ever. Like, that song is the best thing ever.
I've never heard that song before, but it sounds fun. Like,
It
it makes
is.
me want to dance. You were dancing a little bit.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna not dance when you have that song playing. That's the best song in the past 5 minutes I've ever heard. So it's not the best song ever, but it's a really good song either way. All right. So I said that before we're going to be talking about the brain and settings, whatever. I think we're going to talk about tulpas now, because tulpas are so cool and a little dangerous at the same time.
Excited to learn what they are finally.
If you guys know, my nickname in the honors house this last year was Tulpa, because I was talking about tulpa. So I decided I mentioned it one time, and one of my friends goes, hey, so what exactly is a tulpa? You've mentioned it once or twice, and I'm like, oh, you don't know what a tulpa is? I had to explain it, and I had a really rough understanding of what it was now at that point, and now I have a little bit of a better understanding. Do not listen to the creepypasta version. That doesn't happen, no. But a tulpa is basically they used it in India and in Tibet as a sort of meditation, and excuse me. They sort of did this to show mastery of their own minds, that they literally created a second consciousness inside their mind. You know how we were talking about a second ago with hypnotism, people could sort of start touching things and feeling things? That's what they did, but with one character, with one being, and they actually made it a consciousness that lived with them forever. Or for as long as they wanted to, at least. And it's actually common today, too. It's not the most uncommon thing. Think, if you want to really simplify this in a really, really, really simplified way that doesn't at all encompass anything about it, it's like an imaginary friend, but a lot more than just an imaginary friend. So it doesn't encompass anything about what a tulpa is in all reality, but it's an amazing psychological phenomena where a person, as I said, will create a consciousness outside of their own consciousness, but inside their own head. It's a very confusing thing, I think.
So, it's not like people who have multiple personalities. It's not the same thing.
they're similar. This is a very similar case to diseases, to disorders like that, like multiple personality and schizophrenia, but it's not the same thing due to the fact that it's very isolated. So, for example, a person who has a tulpa, commonly known as a tulpomancer, might have one tulpa, and it will be able to speak to the person consciously. It's like, oh, hey, what's up? Oh, nothing much. What's up? That type of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
While when you have schizophrenia, it's a very random. From what I know, I do not have schizophrenia, nor have I researched it much. But from what I know, it seems to be more random, and it seems to have no discretion as to what could be changed. While this one seems to be tulpa seems to be an isolated case. So the Tibetans and the Hindu and the people who practice Hinduism meditated and created these beings, and I find that very interesting. Why would you want a being like that? And when I learned into it from the modern perspective of it, let me read you what it says on Wikipedia. They call it a thought form, and okay, no, it's just actually horrible. This is a horrible definition, even worse than the one I just gave you. Yeah, basically, they're just saying it's an imaginary friend, which is a horrible way of saying it. It's a horrible way of saying it. But it's a second consciousness inside your mind that will naturally go if it needs to, or will stay with you. Sometimes it's up to you to choose. Some people might have, for example, might need it for a natural defense. For example, if someone had a traumatic childhood, they might make a tulpa who comforts them in a way that not humans can't comfort them. For example, you know what I'm saying?
So they're generally beneficial, like they're nice. Simply put,
I would say that they care about the person there.
Okay.
I would not say that their care extends outside of that, or at least not too much. When you think about it like this, it's sort of like having a little person inside your head that is you, and cares for you because it is you. You know what I'm saying? If you die, they die. Have you seen Fight Club?
Yeah.
That's a tulpa.
Okay.
The two main characters, we have the first main character, and then we have the other guy who's sort of like the guy's like, yeah, let's fight and stuff, right?
Even though it's the same person.
Yep, he had a tulpa, and he created the tulpa, and had it the entire time. And the reason why he created the tulpa was because he had a mental disorder, or he was faking to actually at that point. But out of the defense mechanism, he created a tulpa. And that tulpa, when the tulpa was sleeping with the girl, he was actually doing it, but he just didn't know. Sometimes a tulpa would sort of switch in and out with the original user, depending on the stress level of the person.
Have you seen A Beautiful Mind? About the professor at Harvard who...
No.
No? Okay. Never mind. I was going to say he's schizophrenic and he has 3 best friends who he realizes are just manifestations he made himself.
Those would be considered tulpas.
Okay.
Tulpas aren't exclusive. Like, you won't just have tulpas. You could have schizophrenia and tulpas. You could have anything in tulpas. I could have a tulpa if I wanted to. I don't want to, but I could have a tulpa if I wanted to. It's a form of meditation where you cultivate a second consciousness inside your mind. To a degree, it obviously has its dangers, but it's not per se a dangerous thing. It's like saying, it's not like saying, oh, I have a gun to my head. No, it's sort of like saying, I have a gun. It could be used for good, or it could be used for evil.
What would be your reservation on having a tulpa?
I don't want one. Just for the fact that there's something else in my mind, or someone, because these are actual people, because they're second consciousness. There's someone else in my mind, or actually there's an other me, sort of. I don't fancy the thought. I know there are people who are naturals at it, and they have them because of self-defense.
can see
But-
how it could divide you as a
Exactly.
person.
But it can. I've never seen it. I've never really studied into it, and there's not much on the negative effects of it. A lot of people who are people who use tulpas are very fluent in them, if you will, and could actually sort of have them as a companion rather. Think about it like this: modern day uses of tulpas aren't the same ways that they used to be with Tibet. The Tibetans and the Hindus use them as meditation, as mastery over themselves, to reach a sort of higher consciousness. Nowadays, tulpas are used as record players, literally, because tulpas are a gateway to your subconscious. So you use as record players, like, oh, you tell tulpa, hey, play the Rocky Horror Picture song for me, and we'll know which one you're talking about, even if you don't know the name, and they'll start playing it, and every single word will be there because your subconscious remembers it. Or if or sometimes now, because, as I said, with the hypnotist, they were able to touch, feel, pet the tigers and the animals. At this point, you could touch, feel, pet your tulpas at a certain point where you manifest them physically. They can't touch anything else, but you could touch them. And a lot of people use that for sexual frustrations. I'm not going to go into any further detail of that. And at that point, they just sort of become like a succubus in a way. Sort of suck out your energy. Not suck out your energy literally, like suck out your energy like a succubus would, but because that's what it does, that's sort of like what happens. That's about it. And some people use it as a conversational partner, just to, say hi to once in a while. Play patty cake baker's man. I don't know. It was really, really good. I'm sorry. There's something. I just got a message from Paul again. He says, do bronies have tulpas? Do bronies have tulpas? If you guys know what a brony is a man around the mid-20s to mid-30s, maybe even older, who has an obsession with My Little Pony, or younger, let's say teens to 30s, has an obsession with My Little Ponies because of its actually has a lot of mature content in it. My Little Pony. I'm surprised at how much mature content it has, but and apparently my friend's saying they sort of have pony wives. This could be related to any fandom, for example, supernatural fandom out there, where everyone wants Dean or Castile or someone as their husband, and they say, "Oh yeah, he's my husband." I wouldn't say those are tulpas. But they go, sometimes bronies, sometimes hardcore fans go a little over the edge. And if you see in the anime fandom, they buy pillows, like hug pillows, which are human-sized pillows that they start hugging and say, oh, this is my waifu or my husband or whatever. Crazy stuff. But yes, Paul, I know how crazy they get into it. That's the same thing with anime. But those aren't tulpas per se. Those are not tulpas. Tulpas are too complex for those type of people, I think, sometimes. If you're so one-tracked, I don't think you'll be ever make a tulpa like that, which I don't think is sort of possible if you're so one-tracked. But in general, the tulpa is a very interesting phenomenon. What do you think about tulpas? Cassie.
Okay, I thought you were asking Paul.
Well, if you guys want to call in and you want to tell what you think about tulpas or your reaction to tulpas, or actually tell me, would you learn to get a tulpa, or would you not? Call in at 386-822-8770 and tell us if you're interested in the theory or if you would rather stay away from it like I would. So tell me, Cassidy, what do you think about tulpas?
I think it's an interesting concept, and I don't want to rule it out because so many things have been proven true in the last decade that we thought.
It is a psychological phenomenon. It's actually a proven phenomenon because it's thousands of years old.
I mean, it's so confusing to me. Like, before I came in here, I've never even heard of a tulpa, and now it's interesting. think I would ever have a tulpa because you have to really believe in it, probably.
Mm-hmm.
The same with, like, hypnotism.
Exactly.
And I wonder, do you think it signifies insanity, or it's something totally different?
I definitely do not think it signifies insanity. When you look at human beings, there's actually a psychological test that has an insanity meter, if you will. Mm-hmm. And most people on this test, I forgot what show this was. It was about this guy, Mark Saki, did a show on thieves and murderers and stuff. So he took a psychological exam, and usually people on the psychological exam range from a 3 to a 4 out of 10 for psychopathy. Which is, I mean, when you think about it, most people are 3 to 4. That's pretty crazy. Mark Saki raked in a 6, if I remember correctly. And a lot of these murderer psychopaths, 9s. And we could even go on to say that Albert Einstein was a psychopath. Because of... The one thing I love is that there's a thin line between brilliance and psychopathy. For example, the Joker, complete psychopath. But he is brilliant beyond all means. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's the same with living human beings as well. We have so much... the brain has so much potential to do stuff. Sometimes it'll just sort of... If you take the wrong turn or if you do the wrong thing, you'll either become psychopathic or brilliant. It's a fork in the road, if you will. And some people take the wrong way. For example, Albert Einstein, he became brilliant scientist, whatever. But he also had clinical depression. And he had a lot of mental problems, stuff like that. So that has to say a lot. When you have such brilliance, what's the cost? And when you have such psychopathy, what's the benefits? Because there's cost and benefits to both of them. Though, of course, psychopathy is not... I'm not making light of being a psychopath. I am simply saying that is what I've observed. And that's what I have heard. You know what I'm saying? That's also for the viewers out there who are going to say, no, psychopath is completely evil. And no, I'm not making light of psychopathy. Psychopathy can be really bad. But I'm just saying there is a very thin line. Like how I say there's a thin line between brilliance and stupidity.
Yeah.
I love walking that line so much. Tightrope walker here. But that's basically the same thing. And if you take care of yourself well, you'll become brilliant. If not, psychopath. Depending on your genealogy, once again. How do we get from Tulpas to psychopath?
Tulpas to psychopath.
How do we get there?
I have no idea.
Great. Wow. I don't even know where to go right now. Once again, guys, call in 386-822-8770. We'll put you right on the air, and you get to hear your own voice. If that's not cool, I don't know what else is. All right. So we talked about tulpas. We talked about a little bit of psychopathy, which is interesting. I don't know. What would you add, Cassidy, to this?
To this?
Yeah. Because I could probably go a little deeper into tulpas, but it's a very confusing subject matter. Even I don't know that much about.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I did some research on it, I don't know too much about it. But what would you add to this this I guess episode if you had to say like about the mind?
I don't know. I feel like we've covered so much. Mm-hmm. Maybe, have you ever heard the saying that, I read somewhere there's a statistic, like we only use
10% of our mind?
Yeah, 10% of our mind. What do you think, why do you think
Completely
that is?
False.
You think it's false?
Oh, no. I know it's false. The Mythbusters did a test to see if we use 10% of our mind, which at any given moment where we're not critically thinking like we are right now, mm-hmm. and we're just sort of relaxing, maybe we're just reading a book, walking around, looking at the skies and hearing the birds tweet and the fox go ring-a-ding-ding-ding-ding-ding-ding, that we use about 33% of our physical brain. Mm-hmm. I think we use 10% of our potential because human beings are pretty barbaric in a lot of ways, and we don't love exactly using our minds for science and technology. Rather, we like using our minds for slander and hate. But anyways, I think that we use 10% of our potential of what we can be. And I don't deny the fact I only use 10%. I'm not at my full potential. I'm not going to deny that. But I think that we could unlock more potential. For example, there's a woman in Russia who, when she saw a child trapped under a car, she was able to go and pick up the car. She's an old woman, like 60 maybe.
Yeah.
But because her mind was sort of unlocked at the point, she was able to pick up the car and use all of her muscles consecutively to save the child. If we had all of our muscles used consecutively, we could lift about 10,000 pounds. If I got that from the Human Machine.
Do you think there's a... I mean, isn't there a reason why we don't use all our muscles? Wouldn't it hurt us?
Oh, God, yeah. This is from the Human Machine, the video I watched a long time ago, but this one man had a rock. He was in a canyon, and there's a giant boulder rock stuck on his arm. Yet he was able to... one second. He was able to move that rock off his arm by using all of his chest muscles, all of his arm muscles at the same time because his brain was so unlocked. You know what I'm saying? And the earlier thing when I said 10,000 pounds, that's including muscles like the tongue. And that's every single possible muscle in your body working at the same exact time. So I'm not saying that every muscle basically as a human being. I'm saying every muscle as in if it was one long strand of muscle. But yeah, once you move something that big, your muscles tear up like crazy.
Oh, I can imagine.
If you think about the myosin and the actin, I believe they're called. They sort of work like a rowing boat. It sort of pulls on the myosin fibers and contracts your muscles so that they can actually work. But because they're contracting so much, and every single one is contracting so much, they start ripping. And that's why you feel pain after you work out, because you're ripping the muscles, yet they repair themselves at a healthy rate instead of just like I destroyed everything, and that's it, you know? I've destroyed everything, and now it can't heal properly. It will heal eventually, but not properly. And I'm sorry, I'm coughing a little today. And I think that's a really cool part about the mind that if we use our mind and unlock it so much, we could use actually 100% of our body as well.
I'm not sure how much time we have left, but I wanted to talk about the mind in relationship to dreams.
That could be an entire other episode. That could be an entire other episode. I think we should say that for another episode, to tell you the truth. We are on the... we are around the last 15 minutes where I usually stop. I usually stop around 10 to 10:15, so I don't have any per se stopping time. So if anyone still wants to call in, feel free to call in at 386-822-8770. And tell us your opinions on the mind and how it works. I'll give you my own personal experience with something it's extremely minor, so it wasn't anything grandiose. I was whittling one day a piece of wood with a knife that my mom... that was the only knife that I was allowed to have. Oh, we got a caller.
Awesome.
You're on The Strange with the Weird, Stefanos Saganakis. How you doing today?
Hey, it's Paul. You can finish your story. I didn't realize you were starting to tell.
Nah, don't worry, Paul. Go on.
Go on, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. I know you're all talking about, like, experiencing feats of strength or whatever because you unlocked your mind or whatever. And I know in my experience in the Army, for the past 5 years, I was part of a really, like, top-tier training unit. And I experienced something very similar to that 2 or 3 times. Like, the more it happened to me, the more I realized I could get into this state. It wasn't necessarily lifting a giant object or anything, but an example would be
it would be pushing your body to the absolute limits, right?
Right, past the limit to where it was almost as if there was no limit. So an example was, we had this demonstration to put on that they had scheduled it during the middle of our training, and I was the commander of the unit at the time. So what happened was, our patrol and all of our equipment was a mile into the wood line, exactly 1,600 meters, which is 1 mile, in the mountains of North Georgia. So this is not flat ground, this is mountainous terrain. So
That sounds like fun.
I told all my guys, was like, listen, like, you don't know where you are, I know where we are, and you're going to follow me, and we're going to run all this equipment back in 15 minutes. And if you get lost, like, that's it. If you can't keep up, you're just going to be lost in the woods. And you're going to have to freeze tonight, because it's getting below 25 tonight. I thought I was going to motivate them like that. Anyway, we start running the mile, and immediately some of these guys they're not going to make it. And I can't really leave them behind, so I started taking more and more and more of their stuff. I kept on looking at my watch, and I was like, we're not going to make it. We're not going to make it. So in the end, what had happened was, because my guys tell me the story. I didn't tell myself the story. Like, I hear my guys talk about it all the time. I had carried 215 pounds for a mile, and we ran it in 12 minutes, up and down.
Are you kidding me?
I remember during the whole thing, I wasn't tired. It just, I had this like burning desire to make it, and it just felt like I had an infinite spring of energy to pull from, and I was never tired. I could only go faster. So like, the more weight I grabbed, the faster I was running. And I was still leaving all these guys behind. And in the end, like, I was carrying half of the patrol equipment for them. And these guys were carrying nothing. And they still couldn't keep up. But I was just going and going and going. Faster and faster and faster. There was just no limit whatsoever to how fast I could push or how much more weight I could carry. But right after that, we did the demonstration. When the demonstration was over, like, I keeled over when I had to go to the medic.
Oh,
and,
God.
like, I was completely dehydrated. I pulled a whole bunch of muscles. You know, like, they had to take me out of the FTX for a few hours. You know, feed me. They had to put the IV in my arm. And then I was just confined to sitting in the talk on the battle track. And that was the rest of my FTX. But, yeah, like, point is, I think, yeah, that can totally happen, but I'm not sure if you're using more of your mind. It's more like you just turn off the part of your body that regulates the pain you feel to keep yourself safe.
But what regulates the pain?
It's not a safe thing to do.
But what regulates the pain is the brain at that point. I agree. That's an amazing story. That's actually really cool. And what I love about it is you said it yourself. You felt horrible right after.
It was bad. It was like a complete bodily shutdown, like involuntary on my part. But
exactly.
Then my brain like took control again, and it was just like, stop moving, keel over, fall on the ground, like take water, drink water, anything, just stop moving. And so I was like TKO for like 30 minutes.
There was the brain is such an amazing organ because it controls your muscles. And all that nervous system, all that electricity is running from your brain to your body, every movement you make. And at least according to the documentary I watched, the machine, they said that at any time on a normal basis we're using about a third of our muscles. Not necessarily saying a third of our muscles being like we only use one bicep or whatever. A third of muscles being a third of the muscle strands inside the biceps.
Gotcha.
So, and that's to keep us safe. That's so that when we work out, we could tear those strands and heal them later.
Right.
And then we could go to the other strands later on, work those out, and get stronger overall.
Mm-hmm.
So, what you probably did, which that's really cool, is you probably just went all out, adrenaline, and opened up your mind so much that your legs and your back, all that stuff was pumping. And that probably killed you big time.
Yeah, I didn't feel good at all afterwards, but man, during it, no limit whatsoever. I could keep going, no matter what.
Thank you very much, Paul. That was an awesome story.
Hey, thanks for having the show, man.
No problem. Talk to you later, man.
Bye. Bye.
All right, I'm just going to wrap it up with my own personal story now. It's not as spectacular as Paul's. Maybe I should have gone first. But I was whittling, and this is sort of related to the brain, in the process of healing and ignoring pain. And when I was whittling, I had a really crappy knife because my mom took away all the good knives. We had good quality knives, and then I had a really crappy knife, and my mom's like, no, you have to give me all the good knives. I'm like, well, okay. So I had the really crappy knife, and it was like a switchblade, sort of, pocket knife, and it closed right on my hand. So that's the scar right here, my pinky.
Oh, wow.
And it went all the way to the bone, which I'm pretty sure I've told a lot of you this story. My mom was really mad because I was bleeding for 8 hours right after that. But I sort of just like ignored it. I sort of took the blade right out, and I could just sort of like feel it just come out of the bone a bit. I like grimace at the memory because I just felt really weird. I went back to whittling. And then about 30 minutes later, I'm like, maybe I should have put a Band-Aid on this. This has been bleeding for a while. So I put a Band-Aid on it, and I had to replace the Band-Aid like 6 times. But that was something that should have gotten stitches. But because my mind was so whatever at the moment, it just shut down all pain and stopped it, which I thought was amazing.
Oh, wow.
And I still actually have very little feeling. My pinky, the side of my pinky is numb. I can feel things, but it's definitely not as well as I could feel hitting this pinky over that one. Which, actually, I've gotten a lot of scratches and bumps from that, not noticing. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for listening to The Strange and the Weird in this week's show. Thank you very much, Paul, for calling in. I hope that all the rewards get to you soon. I am going to do another quiz soon. The prize is going to be for you to be a Skype guest host here on The Strange and the Weird. I'm going to put you on Skype. You'll be joining me and my guest host at the time on our show. And this is only for people outside of Stetson. So, for example, if you want to do that, you could do that. Or if my friend, or if Tori or one of my friends, Kelly or whatever, wanted to do that, they could do that, and they could come on Skype after they do a quiz. Once again, with all the past shows that we've had here on The Strange and the Weird. Not all of them are archived. There is your challenge. All right, I'll tell you guys when that's going to happen. I'm not sure when that'll happen yet. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a spooky night.